the industry that we come into, sales, we're taught to go out and get the business from a new source instead of saying, hey, look, you've got this already, just build it out. Your goal long term is actually to build relationships. That's your goal, right? And so once we start looking at it this way and saying, it's not about being content, it's being more aware. Like, where's my next transaction coming from? It's coming from somebody that knows me, likes me, and trusts me, more likely. And once I've got that down, now I can expand into marketing and saying, let's go and get more business now that I have one pillar down.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here officially live with Tristan Ahumada, the creator of the most badass real estate Facebook group on the market in the industry. That's Lab Code Agents. I mean, you don't really need much of an introduction, but I guess for anybody who somehow doesn't know who you are, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your book, and what you've been working on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. First of all, I appreciate it. Thanks for the time. And yes, I've been in real estate for a while, 2004. So I think heading into the 20th year. And I first started in real estate doing all the regular stuff that we all used to do, expireds, for sale by owners, open houses, all that good stuff. And it worked. And the market tanked. I had to shift over to online leads and then tried a lot of Google PPC, then Facebook lead ads. And then we progressed into other amazing things there. Through that whole process, I was lucky enough to create Lab Code Agents at the right time, and that blew up. And then that opened up a lot of other opportunities for me, not only running Facebook and Instagram's real estate advisory board for the whole nation, but also being part owner in a lot of other tech companies within the real estate world and outside. So here I am, man, still doing real estate and doing everything I love.
I appreciate it, man, honestly. So all of your experiences, I guess, came together to create this behemoth. If you're watching this, if you're listening to it, you're not going to see, but I've got a couple of the real estate prospecting books behind me. That's Tristan's new book. Also, for anybody listening to this, we're going to be giving away 5 copies. All you got to do is share this episode and also tag the Real Marketer Podcast and Tristan as well. And if you do that, then we're going to select 5 people. I'm going to ship over one of Tristan's books for you, free of charge, obviously. So just share the episode. So one of the first things that you mentioned early on in the book is I like to get into the inspiration of people. So you spoke about one of your favorite books, or you actually said your favorite book was The Daily Stoic.
Yeah.
My best friend actually is also, he reads that book all the time. And I like the idea of it, that there's almost a built-in framework on how to read that book. It's not just go through it. It's every day, a small excerpt. So what is your favorite idea from that book as it comes to business and success in business? And why does that pertain so much to success in business?
Yeah. Great point. I usually pick The Daily Stoic as my favorite book, only because anyone can pick it up and read it and dive into it day by day, because it's like a daily devotional type of thing, where it focuses on philosophers, Greek and Roman philosophers, that exemplified a life of stoicism, which means remaining calm, looking a lot of introspect, just reflection on the self, so that you can be a better version of yourself, so you show up better for those around you, whether at work, at home. And that really struck a chord with me early on when he released it. And obviously now it's blown up. But that is definitely how I live my life. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is me. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Or at least the version of yourself that you want to be, I'm sure.
At this point, it is me. But initially back in the day, I was growing into becoming the version I am now. And now I'm working on other things. But yeah, that's me, dude. Like, what you see here is what you see everywhere. I don't change.
Yeah. Is there any part of the book that you think stayed with you longer than the rest of them?
No, it's broken up into months. So it's a different type of book, where the months are topics. So every day is it's just a page. So you really just have to read the quote and then what Ryan Holiday has to say about that quote. So let's say we're reading a quote about Marcus Aurelius, about how you have to go through the obstacle. The obstacle is the way. And he just says, yeah, you know what? A lot of people try to go around it, shortcut. No, it actually, you have to tackle the problem to get to it. So every day is a little bit different. And I think that's why it's so digestible for most people. If you were going to ask me what's my favorite book, like an actual book, it would be Extreme Ownership by Jocko. And that one, I read it at the right time for me. And that was just realizing, again, I think we all realize that at some point, hey, it's your fault, right? It's you.
Yeah.
By the way, it's up to you if you want to do anything. And here's what you do about it. So, both of those books are great, man.
Yeah, I like what you were saying about like it's always you. So I like to differentiate fault and accountability, because even if something could entirely not be someone's fault, and I always relate it back to being a parent, right? Owning a business is like being a parent. So I know you have kids also. I got 3 of my own. If you don't want to do, let's say, bedtime one night, you've had a very long day and everybody's just getting on your nerves and you don't really have the headspace, you've got every excuse to just not do it. But you can't just not do bedtime. Like, what does that mean? Your kids aren't going to sleep that night? Like, that's the difference in, I think, fault and accountability. And that's one of the things that I really also like about Jocko Willing. So that he embodies that. It's just, it doesn't really matter. Every single thing is on you. And that's the way to success. I mean, there's no other way about it. It's very easy to point fingers all the time. But I want to actually get into this book here. I really, really enjoyed this. I just had Jess Lenovel on the show last week, and something that I really liked about her book as well is she's really a marketing savant. And as somebody who just dedicates all of my time and energy and effort into learning as much as possible about marketing, so often I'll read a book and it'll all be very good information, but I feel like I won't really come away with anything I didn't know beforehand. But there's so much in this book, and as you can see, again, if you're watching, I got post-its coming all out of this book. There's so much that I really wanted to dive into. And the first thing that I noticed is the book is called Real Estate Prospecting. However, the first thing you talk about is nurture, right? And a lot of the book is actually about nurture. So for example, the bow tie method, HOP method, the 3 F's when it comes to selling with the story, levels of sphere, that's all nurture, right? So not only is it called real estate prospecting, but you start with nurture. So I'm curious, I know there was a rationale for that, but what was that rationale?
People often forget that prospecting is nurturing. The whole goal of everything we do in any business is creating relationships, right? Establishing that trust, whether it's for you to buy this cute little thing that I just bought for $40. It's a hamburger. I love this company, Jellycat. It's a company out of London. I know that I can always rely on them to give me great products, and my kids love it. I love it. And it's great quality. So I think the establishing there of nurture, whether it's through your creation of a product or the service that you have to offer or the value that you give, right? It's across the board. It's the exact same thing. We're either nurturing our clients on how we show up for them or how our product shows up for them. And a lot of us forget that is prospecting. I'm prospecting right now, dude. That's it. That's what it comes down to. And that's why I started with nurturing. It's like, this is it. And mindset. Like a lot of the times you could just point fingers everywhere. It's like, wait a second. I don't think you've actually done enough work on yourself to get to where you want to get to. So it's cool that you want to be over here, but it actually takes this much work and you're not putting any effort into that long term. That's what I've noticed over the years.
Yeah, so that also kind of taps into that daily stoic idea that you were mentioning earlier of it's like, don't try to avoid the obstacles, go through the obstacles. And I think that's something that real estate agents oftentimes don't fully understand, even if they say they do, is everyone's looking for the shortcut. And the only shortcut is to accept that there's no shortcut. The quicker you accept that, the quicker your path is to success. Right? Stop wasting time and money looking for the shortcut. But I'll tell you what I also got out of this, right? So this book is, again, very deliberately, not only the information inside, but the way it's crafted, the order of it all. And what I got out of this is the very first thing as an agent that you should be doing is looking at the people that you already have. Because chronologically speaking, right, I'm following this book. I finish a chapter, I do something. I finish the next chapter, I do something. But you're not starting to talk about how do I go ahead and generate more business now. The first thing you said is, buddy, take a deep breath, step back, look at what you've got, and nurture them because you have business that you're neglecting right now. That's kind of what I got out of that. I thought that was really well done.
Thanks, man. Look, I've been doing real estate at a high level for a long time. And in building Lab Coat Agents, I was speaking around the nation for Realtor.com. And then I had the ability to grow this massive community. So that also exposes me to a lot of conversations with agents. And I also get to see like, okay, what's actually working here at this level? And then when I transitioned out of real estate, as far as consulting and coaching, I noticed that it was the exact same thing over there as well. And so it's like people they try to achieve something, but they look outward when you should really start and saying, wait a second, what's my strength? And who already loves me, likes me, trusts
Yeah.
me? And that's where you should really start. It's like, that's where the business comes from first. Look, I
Right.
started in this business and I called my mom. My mom was one of my first calls. I was like, Mom, you know I'm in real estate. Do you know anybody that wants to buy or sell? This is my script back in the day. My mom, of course, she'd send me somebody. In fact, one of my, let me see, it was open house. Yeah, one of my first 3 closings was a referral from my mom because I called her and I kept on calling her. So there you go.
Yeah. So family's not safe from prospecting endeavors either. That's
No,
so one of the
no.
things. I always advise real estate agents target their families and friends also to leave character reviews, like character assessments of them on their Google business profile as well. So that's also something that
Mhm,
I like, because
mhm.
I think people also spend a lot of energy and effort. Well, actually, no effort really. Disqualifying someone that really shouldn't be disqualified. Like almost when you're a kid and your mom thinks you're amazing and you say, well, that doesn't count. She's my mom. Like, no, that
Mhm.
does count. Like appreciate everybody in your corner. So same thing in prospecting is like, my mom doesn't count. Like, well, does she know people who want to buy or sell a home? Can she leave you a review on Google? Because then she counts. That's it.
All the time, man. And my mom, my first 3 2004, 2005, my first 3 years in the business, she sent me a lot of business because I kept on asking. She was one of the people I would call all the time.
Yeah. And you know she's not going to hang up on you. So there you go.
No. That's funny,
um,
no.
so I want to get into some of the statistics that you pointed out also pretty early on in your book. And this is again about nurture. I think this is the part of the book that I really did appreciate and went through slowly was the nurture aspect. And that 87% of buyers purchased with an agent, right? Referrals are
Yeah,
number one way that buyers find an agent is through just word of mouth. So everybody's again trying to focus on how do I run the best ads? What's the perfect script? Like referrals are still where it's at, right? 73% of buyers only interviewed one agent. So don't waste hours and
uh,
hours and hours and hours creating the most unbelievable presentation. Like just go and talk to the person, right? Two
that's
thirds
it.
of sellers sold with a referral or a previous agent, right? And that number goes to 81% for younger millennial sellers, right? And tell me if I'm misquoted, but this is all from
No,
your book. So
yeah,
38% of sellers recommended their agent 3 or more times, and
which is
89% of agents, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, again, over a third of sellers are going to tell 3 or more people about you. Just do a good job and like let them market for you. And all you have to do is facilitate them marketing for you. Right. And then the
that's
last thing
it.
that you said is 89% of sellers would definitely or probably recommend their agent to someone else. So here's a lot of super exciting statistics that looking at this, you almost feel like, I don't know, you're in a recession with a bunch of cash. It's like, great, here's a bunch of information. What do I do with that information? So now let me give you the floor, understanding that this is the opportunity that every agent is presented with. What do we make of all of that?
I think it's just clear that we need to focus on people that are close to us first. And then those people that we're attracting that are now in our world, we need to do a better job of nurturing them. Because a lot of the times we're always seeking new business. Think of when we jumped into the business, the number one thing that we keep on getting was like, go and prospect to get the business. Meaning, this is the meaning, and this is why I try to shift that meaning. Go and get expireds. Go and get for sale by owners, right? Go and door knock. Go and do open houses, right? Go and get online leads. Go get Zillow, right? Go get referral leads. Go and get, instead of saying, hey, wait a second, you've got all of these people that know you and love you already. It's called your cell phone. And why don't you just export them into a CRM and then just categorize them and say, hey, how close am I to this person? Maybe I should categorize them. Would they refer somebody to me? In fact, you know what? Why don't I just call them and invite them to coffee? But that gets a little bit more difficult because you're like, man, I have to have that conversation with them. It just, maybe I should just go get new business, right? And that's the problem, right? So I wanted to show those stats to show people that, look, if you nurture the people that you have and the new people coming in correctly, you actually build a career out of this instead of hoping that you're going to get business again next year. And you're starting to see the struggle right now. Like the struggle is real. People are jumping out of the business because we have over a million less transactions year over year. So it's got to hit somebody, right?
Right. Would
It's
you
crazy.
say that the ability to, I don't want to say be content, because I don't think it's about contentment, but I believe that there is an overlap between the stoic ideology that instead of just always wanting more and going out and just trying to just build up your wealth, and as Mr. Beast says, just looking for a bigger box and a fancier car to drive in, just be happy with what you've got. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like if somebody could truly master the art of contentment, because it is an art and it's also a science, they would almost inherently become better at appreciating the database that they've already built up of those people that quote unquote don't count but really do.
Yeah, man, it's of course. That's an obvious yes. I think the challenge is that we're the industry that we come into, sales, we're taught to go out and get the business from a new source instead of saying, hey, look, you've got this already, just build it out. Your goal long term is actually to build relationships. That's your goal, right? And so once we start looking at it this way and saying, it's not about being content, it's being more aware. Like, where's my next transaction coming from? It's coming from somebody that knows me, likes me, and trusts me more likely. And once I've got that down, now I can expand into marketing and saying, let's go and get more business now that I have one pillar down, right? Or two pillars down. Let's expand. And I think on contentment here, you brought up a really good point. On contentment, it's not about being satisfied with what you have. Trust me, man, I wake up every day, almost every day, feeling like I'm behind. Like I'm literally behind. I have this urgency inside of me that I feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. And that's what drives me. But also knowing that, okay, I'm happy with what I have, right? And I'm happy with the business that I have, family. I'm happy where I'm at in certain stages. But I also know that I can do much better. And if I don't do better, then I'm just letting myself down, right? And coming to that realization that you're always going to have that and you're always going to battle that. And you always have to do it better than you did maybe a week, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago. That's something that a lot of people can't deal with because they're saying, no, that's too much pressure on me. And I say, great. If that's too much pressure on you, that's fine. But then don't set these amazing goals for yourself and let
Yeah.
yourself down because you're just not putting in the work. Because guess what? This business, like any other business, is a lot of fucking work. It's
Yeah.
not easy. It's like you've got to live this business, man. You look at my schedule at the beginning when I started this. I was successful because I didn't stop working. Yeah, it was all lopsided. You've got to earn being able to do certain things that are like now I have a team. I built out 7 businesses. I got to where I got to. I can take certain days more off than not, right? But I wanted that level of financial success. This is just financially, right? I'm not talking about relationships or anything else. And it takes a lot of work. And on top of it, it takes consistent work over time because that you got to will fall apart if you don't work at it. And I think that's completely not seen. People are like, yeah, I'm in this business now. Let's do this. I'll work 8 to 5. And it's like, no, you're going to work 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day for a long time if you want to get anywhere. There are no breaks. You get a call, you take it. And
Yeah.
that's the hard part that nobody can really put together because they all get the flowery shit. It's like, oh, I can, oh man, you're so toxic. You can't work on the weekends. I'm like, sure, you don't have to work on the weekends, but don't talk to me about the success you want and not show up on Saturday and Sunday. That's my
So,
soapbox, man.
so it happens to be. So I kind of walk a line here with this one. I think that what rings true is what Gary Vaynerchuk said, right? Like to have patience in the micro, but to be urgent and impatient in the macro. And I really like that. So
Yep.
I don't believe per se that I have like a superhuman ability to work really hard. I don't think that's something that differentiates me. So I don't work from 6 in the morning until 11 p.m. What I do is I work every day from 8:30 or 9 o'clock after I drop my kids off until 5. But I have so much of an emphasis on figuring out what's going to move my business forward. And I intentionally, very intentionally neglect everything that isn't going to move my business forward. Now, obviously, if I was like yourself and I was like Gary Vaynerchuk with a superhuman ability, and my brother also has the same thing. It's just the craziest thing how hard that dude works and how hard you guys are working. Like, obviously, it would kind of get me there a lot quicker. And I think that it's okay to recognize, like, it's okay to be like, that's not just me, as long as you have the mental and emotional discipline to say, if that's not me, I'm going to put everything I have into consistency and showing up every single day and doing all of the little things. And I think that's also something that people really do neglect. Like, if only people would work from 8 until 5 consistently.
But they don't, man. They have problems with focus. It's like all of a sudden they're working on, let's say their strength, let's say, is social media. And they're great at it, right? They're great at connecting with people, at creating content. And let's say after 2 hours, they're done. And then the rest of the day, they're just scrolling through, doing meaningless work that doesn't move that needle on your priorities. And then a week later, you've only worked what? In 5 work days, you've only done 10 hours of work. Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, where is the consistency of real work that moves that needle where you need to make it? And unfortunately, a lot of real estate agents or people in general just don't have the work ethic because they lack the focus and they don't know what to focus on. It's like, what do I focus on?
Right.
It becomes a challenge, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the first part of the book really does touch on that when you were speaking all about the mindset. And I think that it's something that's so often overlooked. And I've had so many podcasts just about this because it's such a misunderstood idea where mindset, they think it's like motivation, like, hoorah, let's go. Like, you got this, girl. Like, no, that's not mindset. Like, mindset is about the understanding. First off, again, as Jess Lenovo said last week, I really liked it. People will say that they don't do social media, for example. Like, I don't do social media. So like, okay, great. You're not going to do social media now. That is a limitation that you've put on yourself. But another part of the mindset is, again, identifying, like, when you have a level head, what's going to move my business forward, and let me focus on these to the exclusion of the things that aren't going to move my business forward.
Yeah. And you know what? A lot of what will move your business forward is how you're doing emotionally and how you're doing in some cases physically. And a lot of the times we kind of want to skip that part. We just want to get to the actual work, right?
Yeah.
And then when you're working, it's like, why is this not working? It's like, well, because you're not doing well mentally. That's why it's not working. You're showing up, but you're not showing up like you need to show up. So that's why I started the book with, wait a second, let's take care of you first, because I don't know where you're at in your life. I need you to pay attention to the routines that you have, because the routines that you have most likely suck. And you just kind of fall into it. You wake up and you're like, I got some coffee, got the dog out, I went to the bathroom, now I'm going on social. That's the routine that you think you don't have that you have.
Yeah.
Once you start changing that to start bettering you as a human, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, then you start showing up better and you start seeing things that you didn't see before, right? And for me, man, that transition over a very long period of time, what for me made the difference. I was like, got it. All of these opportunities. Now I have to slow down. Which one do I take and what do I do? Right. So, yeah.
Let's get into the nuts and bolts then of what it means to follow up with somebody, right? And how to generate business. So everybody talks about the idea of a funnel, right? We all have the idea understood, like top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. No, like, trust, it gets bigger, goes smaller, but you did something a little bit different. So your funnel doesn't look like a funnel at all. It looks like a bow tie, right? And you talk about the bow tie method. So Why is it not a funnel? Why is it a bow tie? And why is it important to understand the difference?
It was a conversation that I was having with Gary Keller, actually, that made me realize it. He was showing me some numbers. He was showing me where Zillow and Realtor.com and I forgot what other companies spend most of their money. And he's saying, do you see this? And it was only half of it was a funnel. That's all it was. It was actually a graph. I take that back. It was a full-on graph. It was the life of a consumer. And you know what? They were building out, I'm trying to remember, they were building out Command at the time. So early on, 2017, 18, around there. They were building out Command and they were showing me the life of a real estate agent. I'm sorry, the life of a consumer for the real estate agent. And at the beginning, they were saying, look, it takes so much for a company like Zillow to attract the consumer online, to then convert the consumer into maybe clicking something, raising their hand and saying, okay, send me some information, I'm interested, right? And then on Zillow's part, grabbing the agent or just letting the system nurture that consumer, right? And then finally getting them to that agent to show them the property and then closing the transaction. That's as far as Zillow and Realtor.com got, and Redfin for that matter. And nobody was talking about the other end because all of the money that was being dumped that we saw, all the money that was being dumped was on that. None of it was on making this a cycle to continue this client for the life of the client. All that money was over here. So I'm thinking, wait a second, there's an opportunity to make this into a bow tie. Whereas like as soon as it closes, there's a whole another thing that starts.
Right.
And that part is where you and I can capitalize because now we're going on a one-to-one basis with all of our clients. This is even way before Zillow, Redfin, or Realtor.com because we're starting all over. They just closed on a transaction. Now what? Well, this is where the real work starts if you want to build a career. You've got to show them who you are by nurturing them because what happens typically, you get into a transaction, you close a transaction, and then all of a sudden it feels like you just broke up. Where did this person go? It's like they're out of your life.
Yeah.
So our job is to actually extend this so that they can become part of our core referral core sphere. And in doing that, you have to continually provide value. So we created systems and processes that automate certain messages so that they can become, we have 4 stages here. They have an adopter at the very beginning. It's like, hey, by the way, I'm still here. So don't think that I'm going to forget about you. So I want you to come back into my world differently this time. I'm here to actually be kind of like a concierge to you, right? And then as they start seeing it, it's like, oh yeah, you know what? Tristan's actually here all the time. They start becoming loyal to you. It's like, Tristan, every time I have a question or anything that has to happen here in now I've got gophers or my electrical panel isn't working. I'm just going to go to Tristan.
Yeah.
That creates loyalty, right? And then the next one is then they become an advocate. It's like every time I have a question, Tristan's the go-to. Of course, I'm going to refer him business. And then they become at the point where you're continually sending them things at home, online, and inviting them to events in person. At that point, they become a brand ambassador. And the brand ambassador piece is the key because now at that point, you go into the world of what Seth Godin talks about in all of his books, right? Which is you have people everywhere they go. Anytime they hear the word real estate, they're already talking about you. And that's how you build a career out of this, man.
An analogy that kind of pops into my head of like when you're watching a Disney movie, for example, and like at the end of the day, the prince and the princess marry and they lived happily ever after. I think the happily ever after is almost like the drug that everybody's chasing when it comes to number one in the Disney movies. Because maybe nowadays they might because they get really clever, but I don't think they're going to create a Disney movie like what happens after and like the 30 years of marriage of like the challenge and then the arguments. But at the end of the day, like you can't put those two things. They're two totally different movies. But if somebody gets married, let's say, I don't know, whatever the princess is 20 years old or something in the movies, like she's not defined as a happy person in that moment. The beauty of the rest of her life happens after there, all of the work, all of the toil. They don't sell movie tickets, but that's where it really happens. And I think that companies like Zillow, like Redfin, they're selling the happily ever after idea, like this farce of a movie almost, like it's not real. And it's our jobs to sell the actual happily ever after, the not sexy version, and somehow figure out a way to turn it into something that's truly magical, not just Disney magical.
Yeah, man. And what I came up with in diving deep into this and then looking back to how we had succeeded, this is where I created the acronym HOP so I could remember it for my team, which was our brand at that point needs to meet them at home, online, and in person. So home, online, in person. At home means we're going to be sending them something, whether it's through a company like Client Giant or a postcard or a handwritten note through like addressable or handwritten. And then online, you better believe we're retargeting them on Facebook and Instagram. And then we're also tracking their IP address to make sure that we show up on Google, on different blogs and wherever they're at. And then we also have a newsletter for them. And then we're also showing up on social, like we're doing the like, comment, message with a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then we go deeper online, but then the next piece to this is in person. This is really what keeps it going and keeps that whole relationship feeling like they're special to us. Whether we're meeting them at big events, small dinners, lunches, or one-on-one coffee. And that loops it all together. It's like at home, online, and in person. HOP.
So I know we're running really low on time. There was just one more piece that I really wanted to get into. And you mentioned when it comes to social media, right? You talk about the 3 Fs and selling with a story. So just a quick brief overview. What are those 3 Fs? And practically speaking, for a realtor to create a piece of social media content, a video for social media, what would that actually look like in terms of the videos that they're creating?
So I learned this one from, I'm trying to remember, Brandon Kane, I think it was. And he said, look, Tristan, there are a whole bunch of pieces to social media, but when you want to create content that sticks for a long period of time, it's sticky. Or when you want to create viral content after practicing, because it takes a while, right? I think at that point you have to sell with a story. He says, what I've noticed over the years is companies or brands or influencers that sell with a story are key, and they have these things to it. It's like they give 3 things, and it's the 3 Fs. And they give facts, right? Number 1. And there's a lot of feeling to it, like emotion, sad, happy, whatever. And then it's fun. In some cases, it's fun. And when you have all 3 surrounded by a story, all of a sudden, people hang on to the whole video. It's like they may start off funny with a great hook, and then they may go into a little bit of emotions through some feelings, and then they may have some facts. And what I've noticed after he told me that, and I dug into other great speakers, is Tony Robbins actually does the exact same cycle when he's speaking on stage. And he goes through these 3 little cycles for what, 10, 12 hours? I don't know if you've ever been to one of his events, but daily, like 10 to 12 hours, that's the cycle, man. And I'm like, that is actually brilliant on Brandon Kane's part. And so when I realized that, I'm like, okay, if I want to tell a longer form story on YouTube, it's got to have those 3 pieces. You don't always get those pieces or that opportunity with the shorts, like Reels, YouTube Shorts, or Facebook Reels or TikToks. But look, if you pick one at least, and you have a good hook, you're already winning. And I think we've demonstrated this quite a few times on different outlets, but it becomes down to facts, feelings, and fun, all wrapped up into a story with a good hook. That is really the key, but it takes practice, man.
Okay, Tristan, really appreciate all your time. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, if anybody does, well, everybody should be wanting a copy of this book. It's Tristan's new book. It's kind of flying off the shelves already, but we're going to be giving away 5 free copies. So if you want a copy of Tristan's book, just share this episode and tag myself and Tristan. And like I said, we'll send those out. Really so much fantastic information that has my absolute full endorsement. Again, like I said, if you're seeing this, you're seeing all of the post-it notes sticking out of there. I'm sure we could probably go on for a couple more hours, but I know you're a busy dude. So I appreciate the time you gave us today.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.